Jack Yablonsky, age 28. Jack was a pre-med student to the University of Cincinnati. He did graduate work at the Kettering Institute in Environmental Health, Toxology, and Air Pollution. Today, he is an industrial hygienist for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration of the U.S. Department of Labor, OSHA. OSHA, a controversial agency, perhaps the most controversial in federal government. But it's got a job to do, and Jack plans on making his life's work out of it. Jack works out of the Jacksonville, Florida office. The Jacksonville team is composed of 28 compliance officers, 7 industrial hygienists, and 21 safety specialists. They cover 31,000 work sites with more than 400,000 employees scattered over hundreds of miles and 37 counties from the Atlantic to the Gulf of Mexico. They are charged with the direct enforcement responsibility for the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970. Jack's morning begins with the calibration of the sophisticated equipment he needs in his work. Safety hazards usually can be seen and corrected. Health hazards have to be first detected, then tested, and this sampling equipment has to be prepared in advance. The equipment includes dosimeters to measure noise levels, velometers to measure airflow, oxygen meters, carbon monoxide meters, etc. The inspection is of a shipyard located on an estuary of the St. Johns River. The broad, easily navigable, and well-protected stretch of water has brought the U.S. Navy as well as other maritime interests to its banks. At the gate, Jack meets Dan Heffern, age 51, an OSHA supervisory safety engineer. The personnel and reception offices of the yard are housed in an aluminum trailer. As Heffern and Yablonsky enter, they both produce standard business cards instead of the official OSHA credentials which they carry.
You know, I'd rather produce a business card and sit around like any salesman than just bust in and get people all upset. There's an element of selling in our job. Sure, we're inspecting and we'll cite violations where we find them. But we're also providing a service for which an industry consultant might charge $300 a day.
Heffern and Yablonsky are ushered into the superintendent's office for the opening conference and review of records. The initial walkthrough and later inspection with an employee representative present will follow. After introductions, the superintendent explained that the company had a self-insurance program.
As a practical matter, we're very strong on safety and health. We figure we saved $98,000 in workman's compensation last year because of the program. In fact, we've cut the injury rate 90% in the past 3 years. So, if we're not overjoyed to see you, we realize the value of having another pair of eyes go over what we're doing.
The inspection begins in the first aid office. Heffern and Yablonsky go over the records of injuries and fatalities. It's Jack's first time at this yard, and it will take him a while to go over everything he needs to look at. Heffern has been here before and knows what to look for. Hazardous industries are usually scheduled for inspections annually, and the yard was actually overdue.
I've never had any problems with this yard. I think it speaks for itself, and if you look at the conditions of the place, well, I've not so far seen a repeat of anything that I've cited before.
Dan Heffern is an ex-maritime officer retired from the Military Sealift Command. He was recruited by OSHA as a maritime safety specialist. Industrial hygienists and safety officers normally don't initiate inspections together. Safety inspectors customarily go in first, and where they find health problems, make referrals to health inspectors. The problem is that there just aren't enough hygienists to go around. To remedy this, OSHA is cross-training safety officers in the basics of industrial health. In addition, some 150 men and women are enrolled in a 3-year training program with the goal of having 1,000 fully qualified industrial hygienists on staff by 1980. In the meantime, the inspections go on, and the emphasis, although waning, is still on safety. The shipyard is covered by almost all of OSHA's standards: the fabricating, paint, maintenance, and rigging shops by the General Industry Code, a new ship under construction by the Shipbuilding Code, 2 jobs in dry dock by the Ship Repair Code, and some pile driving by the Construction Code. Heffern looks for personal safety items that are required at work sites such as foundries, construction sites, and shipyards. He checks machinery for unguarded moving parts that can snag clothing or lacerate hands. He looks at saw blades and discusses the operation with the workers. When he discovers a hazard, he doesn't just write it up. He takes the time to explain the danger to the workers. After all, the idea isn't to find fault. It's to prevent people from getting hurt. He inspects electrical wiring, lighting fixtures, cords. Here, his experienced eye picks up something that appears to be in violation of the OSHA standards. He makes notes and will check on it when he returns to the office. Again, he takes time to talk to the workers and to pass out pamphlets. As Heffern said earlier, part of the job is selling, but it's not enough to sell the employer. No safety and health program can be a success unless the workers take a real interest in it. During this particular inspection, Jack Yablonsky had less to test for than would normally be the case.
It's pretty much a downtime now. Notably, they're not doing any welding in enclosed spaces, which is a major problem in shipyards. They've also developed a valve system that automatically cuts off the welding hoses when the torch is shut down, so there's no leakage. Sometimes it's not so easy a matter to figure out the safest and healthiest way to do a job. In a situation involving complicated machinery, it means digging out the manuals and charts and taking it through all the steps. There's nothing very complicated about noise, however, and it's everywhere in shipyards.
Jack meets a crane operator and starts taking noise measurements. He makes notes on what he finds. Later in the morning, Jack checks the sound levels enveloping a hooded worker blasting a hull with abrasives.
Until fairly recently, we would measure a good portion of a work shift, 4 or 6 hours, and then extrapolate for the entire 8-hour shift. But now, we test for the full 8 hours. It means a long day, up before dawn to greet workers on the first shift with measuring monitors to attach to their clothes. Then at night, all the samples have to be shipped off to Salt Lake City for analysis. And you have to be on the work site 8-9 hours just to make sure that the monitors are being worn all the time.
Jack checks a worker's breathing apparatus, then moves on to where a welder is working on the steel plates for a ship hull. Jack monitors noise and also checks for gas leakage. He attaches a measuring monitor to his shirt. The information Jack gets will be sent to OSHA's laboratory in Salt Lake City that night after the day's inspection. The analysis would be waiting for Jack at the office when he goes in to prepare his final report. The inspection took 3 days. At the end of that time, the men returned to the OSHA area office where they went over the notes they took at the site, checked the standards and regulations, and reviewed their final report with William Gordon, the area office director. The results of the inspection? Pretty fair. That made the closing conference back at the shipyard that much easier. The report was presented to the company officials and employee representatives. The findings were discussed to everyone's satisfaction. At the end of the conference, they all parted company. Perhaps not close friends, but with a mutual respect. Jack and Dan have a job to do, a worthwhile job, trying to keep working people alive and healthy. And the employers they deal with every day respect that. When they come calling at plants, factories, shipyards, they're proud to say, "Good morning, we're from OSHA," because they're there to do a professional job, to help, not harass. Maybe that doesn't always make them popular, but that will change. In the meantime, they'll keep on doing their job, OSHA's job, assuring, insofar as possible, the safety and health of every working man and woman in America.